high school cross country is probably the hardest sport for any college coach to actually recruit for because everything about it keeps changing. The length of the course might say 5K, but the course itself varies a whole lot, especially with weather conditions. The only thing that we know to be true is who wins and who loses. And at Nike Cross Nationals, on the girls' side, that was not up for debate this season. Jane Hedengren just put down what I'm going to consider the most dominant performance I've ever seen on a cross-country course, and certainly the most dominant I've ever seen at the high school level. She didn't break the national record in that event, but she didn't have to. She won a national championship by over 40 seconds on a course that was muddy and busted up already. If you add the fact that she broke Tuohy's record on that championship course, once again, under non-ideal conditions, it should be very clear who the best distance runner, specifically long distance runner, is in the class of 2024 right now, because the field of girls that she beat had almost every single fast distance runner in the entire nation represented, including Sadie Engelhardt, who was the #1 recruit heading into this year for the class of 2025. However, the longest distance events aren't exactly her best thing. Riley Blade was there, who ran the fastest time ever recorded on a 3-mile course earlier this season at Woodbridge, and beat Jane all the way back then. And aside from all of the top underclassmen that I could name right now, I have to point out, Elizabeth Leachman was in that race. She is not just the #1 recruit in the class of 2026. She earned that title by making it to the Olympic trials after her high school sophomore season. If that's not a 99 overall rating, I don't know what is in high school. She actually finished 3rd in that race, right behind Victoria Garces, who is a senior and now committed to Duke University, making them look incredibly good because her 4-star ranking is clearly going up after this. But none of that really matters when you're in a race with Jane Hedengren, who beats the entire field by 40 seconds. The time alone doesn't do it justice because I watched that race. She essentially led from wire to wire, going out in front early and then adding to that lead every single kilometer going forward. And now that we know she is the national champion, doing it in a race that had all of the fast people in it, where does she fall amongst all the great high school runners to ever do it? She's already committed to BYU, which just won the national title in Division I for cross country. And now they're adding her to that roster. Katelyn Tuohy joined an NC State team that had never won a national title until she got there. You could argue that she was the missing piece to push them over the edge. And Parker Valby ended up at a Florida program that really wasn't winning much of anything in distance running, at least not at the national level. But once she got there, she clearly made that program relevant. But now the best long distance runner in high school, hands down, is going to the reigning national championship team. Of course, nobody knows for certain what will happen in the future. But if you were going to place bets on next year's national title in cross country for D1, I would say BYU is probably the best choice. And beyond that, the track and field world will now be watching Jane Hedengren, but no longer as an up-and-coming distance running star. She has officially arrived. She is going to be held to a standard that only the best of the best have been able to live up to in a college uniform. Recruit rankings don't mean anything after the gun goes off. And apparently, breaking records in the past don't have any impact either. Jane Hedengren apparently took that literally, going all the way to the front of the pack, and then running away from them. The same pack that had some of the best high school distance runners that we've ever seen in the modern era, and will likely never see anything like it ever again. But if you're new here, I want to say thank you for even making it this far into the video. And I'm Coach Rob, the founder of SCArecruiting.com, where I rank the best track and field recruits across the entire nation. And if anything that I say actually connects with you, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe. But if I don't, just let me know in the comment section, because I try to read them all. Winning a state championship is a big deal, but an even bigger deal is earning the right to call yourself a national champion. And when you do that at the Nike Cross National Meet, you are officially the real deal. For that reason, almost everybody was shocked, including the announcers, when they found out that Charlie Vause, out of New Mexico, is the new boys NXN champion. If you were listening to them, you might think it was the greatest upset in all of sports, because there were a bunch of fast athletes in that race, but he was not supposed to be one of them. In fact, he did not win his state championship meet earlier this season. But if you ask me, that is a little misleading, because the man who beat him at that state championship is Corbin Coons, who is the number 7 recruit for the entire class of 2025 on the SCA Top 10. And he was not on the starting line at NXN, but a whole bunch of other fast runners actually were, including 3 of the top 5 distance runners on the SCA national list for the senior class. But the fact remains that Charlie Vause winning that race is still a huge shock to many fans of the sport, but it really shouldn't be. In distance running, the reason why it's an incredibly hard sport to recruit for is because high school boys are always improving physiologically throughout their career. That basically means that every single year amongst the senior class, somebody is going to break out and do something that we never expected. We just don't know who their name is until they actually do it. In 2024, that boy was Drew Griffith. He was incredibly talented throughout his high school career, but he was still not much more than a low 4-star recruit at best before his senior year started. By the time it was done, he was the best distance recruit in the entire nation, and it was not close. He also had the national championships and the national records to back it up, both in cross country and on the track. The truth is that for every single track event, most people only really focus on whoever is way out in front. It doesn't mean that the people behind them don't actually matter. However, they just don't matter enough for casual fans to figure out their names yet. Believe it or not, Charlie Vause entered his senior season as one of the top 100 recruits in the entire nation across every event. So him winning a national championship in cross country, although it might not have been very likely, is not out of the realm of possibility. And even though his state doesn't put out a whole bunch of top flight athletes, this year they happen to have at least 2 of them. He just wasn't the one in front yet at the state meet. Charlie Vause is still uncommitted at this time, and no doubt Division I teams will be taking notice after you become a national champion. But if you're asking somebody like me, who actually ranks recruits across every event, I have to come up with a system to figure out who is really the best. And in cross country, where the course you're running on keeps changing, as well as the weather conditions that you have to endure on those courses, who wins and who loses? More importantly, who did you run against and who did you beat? Is the real test when we're considering how cross-country factors into the equation. So when you go out there and win a national championship and beat 3 of the top 5 recruits in the senior class when you do it, you are officially the real deal. So yes, Charlie Vause is now the real deal. I have no idea what the future for him will look like, but I do know that the secret is out. Cross-country is a sport where the winner is always the strongest man, the one who can carry an anvil on his back, better than anybody else. Rankings and seed times won't run the races for you, and the time on the clock really doesn't even mean that much, unless you are in the front of the race. Perhaps that's why we didn't notice Charlie up until this point, but it's also why we will not be able to forget him ever again. If you think you need help getting recruited, you are probably right. On SCArecruiting.com, you can get a ton of resources, like my free recruiting guide, detailed videos, online courses, and much more. And if nothing else, and you just really want to see more content like this, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe.